Every year, video games shine in their own way, but there are always gaps to be filled regardless. You have that game that had been anticipated for years, the game that was revealed and released in the same year, that game that comes out of nowhere and becomes trendy, and the game that is destined to flop, and the game that is destined to be a success. Despite that, there is a general idea of the different video game genres in a year. A common tactic to garner attention in the industry is to use games in the past that were very popular. However, since the summer of 2022, it seems that this trend has gone upwards. Like and subscribe for more like this. So yeah, video game remasters and remakes, we all know what they are, but in case you don't, here is the basic rundown. I've noticed that sometimes people confuse it. A remaster is an older game from a previous generation that is being ported and re-released to a modern generation, often giving some visual overhauls, bug fixes, and possibly some additional features. Basically, while it is still the same game as the original overall, it is more of a definitive addition to it. Examples include Metroid Prime Remastered and Final Fantasy XII: The Zodiac Age. A remake is a complete reimagining of a previously released game. Remakes are generally a much bigger deal considering that sometimes it could be a new experience even if it is based off of what it is remaking. These games are built from the ground up, may have a different development team, vastly upgraded in their visuals, new OST, and sometimes the genre of the game may change, not too drastically though. Iconic examples include Final Fantasy VII Remake, the recently released Dead Space, the ongoing development of the older Resident Evil games, such as the 4th game coming soon, basically just like in movies and shows. So the reason I am making this video is because I have noticed a trend in these types of games being developed. I have actively been keeping up with the video game industry since about 2018. I've been playing video games for much longer than that though, and I have never seen this fast of a rate for remasters and remakes. So let's look at the general reception of these types of games to see why people love remakes and remasters, and then look to identify the ongoing trend of these games coming out a lot more frequently. Let's begin with reception. Getting the obvious out of the way, of course people love these games. That's why they are even a part of the business in the first place. It's a pretty safe option. Usually cost-effective too, as far as remasters are concerned. Hey, remember this game? Oh yes, that game was my childhood. Well, how would you like to play it again on your current system? Oh, that sounds like a great idea. No problem.
Now give me $60.
Whoops, how did that last part slip in there? Well, people are gonna buy it, so you have that. People want to experience something that they loved so long ago. Reintroducing a game is just a recipe for success, if the cards are played right. Let's talk about some games that had successful and unsuccessful receptions in the past. Final Fantasy VII Remake is a big example. I have talked about this game in my other video about Final Fantasy. I really want to play this one. This game was announced 6 years before its release. 6 years. I have not played Final Fantasy VII yet, but I can't even imagine how harsh the wait was. Anyway, the wait did pay off as the game had a very strong reception, and the sequel to the remake, as they are expanding on the remake, is coming at the end of this year. Pretty cool. Another example, The Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening. A very simple handheld game that was the first handheld Legend of Zelda game to be released on a handheld system. 26 years later, after its original release, a fully fledged colorful remake was revealed. Still maintaining what made the original iconic, and keeping its charm, the visuals, art style, and transition to 3D graphics made it stand out so well that players really do consider it a reimagining. An example of a strong remaster is Dark Souls Remastered. The first Dark Souls is very iconic and is a strong example of a game that is still relevant several years after its release, and holds up very well. In 2018, a remaster with improved visuals was released, runs well, and if you were to check statistics, a handful of people are still playing. Typically, no one is going to get too upset about a remake if it is actually in need of one, or would just benefit in general, and a remaster, well, you want your popular game to be prevalent on modern consoles and PC hardware. Despite that though, I know I am not the only one who has noticed a trend in these types of games recently. It seems that remakes and remasters are coming a lot more often than usual. In the thumbnail of this video there are 6 I listed: Persona 3 Remaster, Resident Evil 4, Metroid Prime Remastered, Dead Space Remake, System Shock, and Silent Hill 2 Remake. I'm going to be honest, it didn't take me very long to figure out those games. When I thought 2023 remakes and remasters, they just immediately popped into my head. I feel like there has been a rise in these types of games, and I think I have a theory as to why. 2019, 2020, and 2021 had very successful remakes and remasters that took the industry by storm. From being nominated for Game Awards to shocking sales and critical reception, and just being such relevant topics in the state of the industry, you know that these companies were paying attention. Every platform had this situation going on, especially the Nintendo Switch. For example, in 2019, the Switch was still flourishing, and as people noticed its trend with the sales and relevance, it was only inevitable that these companies wanted to get their older games on the platform. The marketing strategy was already there for them, the hybrid model that allows players to play both at home and or on the go. The Switch has limited hardware compared to its competitors, but that didn't matter as much as far as the remasters were concerned. If the ports work well, a lot of players are going to gravitate towards a Switch version of the game. 2019, 2020, and 2021 had very successful remakes and remasters that took the industry by storm. From being nominated for Game Awards to shocking sales and critical reception, and just being such relevant topics in the state of the industry. You know that these companies were paying attention. Every platform had this situation going on, especially the Nintendo Switch. For example, in 2019, the Switch was flourishing, and as people noticed its trend with the sales, it was only inevitable that all of these companies wanted to get their older games on the platform. The marketing strategy was already there for them, the hybrid model that allows players to play both at home and or on the go. If the ports work well, a lot of players are going to gravitate towards a Switch version of a game. Back to remakes, I want to talk more about award nominations. In the 2020 Game Awards, Final Fantasy VII Remake was nominated for Game of the Year along with being nominated for other awards. So we do know that remakes are capable of winning awards, and I believe that it is fair, because like I said, remakes are a reimagining of the game, so it's not exactly just copy and paste. Regardless, it is important to note that all remakes are different in their own way. 2023 has a lot of fresh ideas for games, don't get me wrong. I can't help but feel like this year's Game Awards might be more interesting as it may include a Best Remake or Best Remaster category, or some sort of mix of the two. For me, it would be cool to see, but I would not be surprised if this ends up giving mixed opinions. Last thing I want to talk about is more opinionated, and I would like to hear some of your picks as well. Remasters and remakes I'm keeping an eye on. Some of these are already released, such as Dead Space Remake and Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe. I've never played a Dead Space game before, and one thing about this game is that it actually does its job at scaring you, while of course giving you a chance to fight back. I never really was too big on those horror type games where the character you play is helpless and you just have to avoid jump scares. Dead Space actually seems to go above and beyond. Kirby's Return to Dreamland is a childhood game of mine, and is a game I would definitely say has aged very well. I would love to give this another go as a definitive version on the Nintendo Switch. Why have I not done that already? Well, it's $60. And knowing Nintendo, they barely drop the prices of their games, and their quote-unquote sales don't do much. Now for games that have not yet released. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Wow, I really am talking a lot about Final Fantasy VII in this video. But of course, I love Final Fantasy, I plan on playing their predecessor, so you know that I have to keep an eye on this one. Great reception, very appealing gameplay, it's a remake of one of the most influential games ever made. This game will be released this winter. Dragon Quest III HD 2D Remake, there isn't really a release date for this, but this was announced in May of 2021, and there hasn't been too much about it since. But here is why I want to try this game. The original Dragon Quest III is extremely iconic and is generally considered an impactful game in turn-based combat, and was one of the first RPGs to have a party system. Now it is coming back with the beloved HD 2D remake style that games such as Octopath Traveler, Triangle Strategy, and Live Alive use. I really hope this comes out this year. Suikoden 1 and 2 HD Remaster. Another HD redevelopment of a classic title, but instead of a remake, it is a remaster. Among JRPG fans, Suikoden is very well known, but outside of that, it is pretty niche. Steam says it will be released at some point in 2023, and I would like to give this a try because from what I have heard, the gameplay and story are fantastic, but there are issues with its polish. Maybe this remaster can fix that and make the game a lot better than it is known as. That'll be it for this video. Let me know your thoughts on remakes and remasters. Do you love them? Not so much? Do you think that there might be a category for best remaster or best remake considering how much faster these games are coming out? Let me know your thoughts. Subscribe and like for more like this, and I'll see you next time.